When I bought my 2017 Jeep Cherokee, I had no intentions of off-roading it, and I still don't. That's one of the reasons I bought the front-wheel drive model. As I started reading about some of the modifications people have been doing to their KLs, the Jeep bug that bit me over 15 years ago with my Wrangler bit me again. I decided to install a small lift so I could run bigger tires. But mostly though, I just like doing stuff to my Jeep. It's addictive. And if you're watching this, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The budget lift I'm using includes spacers that are installed above and below each rear spring. And new bolts for each knuckle around the front struts. A spacing guide is included. I'm going to start at the rear of the vehicle first and jack it up with this Harbor Freight 3-ton jack. I'm using this rubber pinch weld adapter, which is nice for saving your pinch seam. The tools I used to install the spacers above and below the rear springs were a scissor jack to help get the springs compressed, spring compressors, a ratchet for tightening and loosening the spring compressors, and I found that there were times when there was not enough space to fit a ratchet. That's when a wrench was necessary. After the wheel's been removed, compress the spring. This is a 2.5-ton scissor jack. Add the spring compressors and then lower the jack. This gives you more room to work with. On one side I can't fit my ratchet, so doing it the old-fashioned way, using the crescent wrench, little by little. But if there's one thing I learned from the other side, it's that you want to make sure that the spring is nice and compressed before you take it out. You can see it's almost ready to drop out, but you got to take into consideration when you put it back in and you put that spacer underneath, it's not going to be that close. So I'm going to keep compressing just a little bit more. Now I'm going to drop it out. The bottom spacer has this hole in it that you're going to line this up with, and then you're going to point that towards the center of the vehicle when you put it back in. As you can see, it does not want to go in, so I'm going to need to compress these a little more. Now that it's in, it's lined up the way that it was when I removed it, I'm going to go ahead and jack it back up. The tools I used to make the strut modification to the front were ratchets with E14 and 18mm sockets to remove the stock bolts, a hammer to move the knuckle down into its new position. I used a rubber-coated weight along with the hammer, as you'll see, a drill. The instructions called for a 12mm bit. I used a 15/32, and a torque wrench and 3/4 inch sockets to install the new bolts. After the front wheel's off, remove the stock bolt with an E14 and an 18mm. The stock bolt's going to get replaced with this new bolt and nut. You can see that moved down quite a bit. Once the spacing guide fits, you know that the hole in the rear back here is lined up properly and now can be enlarged. The instructions call for 12 millimeter, but I could not find that drill bit anywhere. So 15-30 seconds works just as good. Install the new bolt and torque to 90 pounds. All in all, the lift was pretty easy to do, but I did run into a couple slowdowns. An alignment was recommended after the lift, and it was in order, especially for the rear toe. The lift I gained was about 0.8 of an inch on the front end and about 0.6 of an inch on the rear end.